Hello, welcome to How to Succeed During a Pandemic. Hi, I'm Wendy Lally, your host, and I want to welcome you to what I hope is going to be, I'm sure is going to be, a wonderful show. This program is about people not only managing to get through the pandemic, but actually enjoy a certain amount of success during it because of the way they're growing and learning new things and stretching themselves just a bit. And our next guest, our guest tonight, is someone who has done that all of her life and has an incredible life story that I just had to share with you. Her name is Barbara Bailey, and she has her own business and has had it for several years. And I want to make sure I get the title, Barb, right, of your business. It is an artist management and booking company. I would call her a talent agent, but that's the official name. And she is located here in Chicago, but she places people in Las Vegas, LA, and New York, and Chicago. And it's a very exciting business, and she's a very exciting woman. So I am going to stop talking because I want Barbara to talk and tell you all about herself. Welcome, Barb.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it's so good to be here. We've been talking about doing this, Wendy. And I just want to say it's an honor to be with you tonight. And I'm so happy that you're doing this on behalf of all of us who are waiting to really jump back into business again because the entertainment business, as you know, it's suffering terribly. And I do have an entertainment business. I've been in the business of music for 40 years, actually a few more than that. And I've seen a lot of changes happen. And in 2008, I finally opened my own management and booking company. And I am based here in Chicago, and it is called Barb Bailey Entertainment. And I'll explain later in the show that I also now, under the umbrella of that, have a Barb Bailey Music. And I'll tell you why I did that. And yeah, I do. I have clients in Chicago and New York and Nashville and Vegas and LA. And I book them all over, not just, where they're from. And I love to concentrate on theaters and performing arts theaters and clubs and festivals and private events and parties. And I would say my three biggest genres would be jazz and pop and tribute artists. I have others as well, little of everything, but that would be my major source of concentration. And
And
probably right now,
I just
yeah.
want to say, for those of you who haven't seen Barb perform, she's an incredible cabaret singer. She's just wonderful. She's not just a singer, she is a performer, an entertainer in every sense of the word, and has done shows here in Chicago and written them and produced them as well.
Yeah.
So tell me, well, first, we've got to get to your life story because
Yeah.
it in itself is I'm not going to try to describe it because it's indescribable. I'm going to let Barb tell it. And please tell us about your origin story.
Once upon a time, a baby was found in a cardboard box, and that baby was me. It was found in a cardboard box by the caretaker of the Tally Ho apartment building at 6 a.m. in the morning when he came to work and stumbled over a baby in a box. And the first thing he did was take the baby to the nearby hospital, and I became what they called the ward of state. That meant that the state of West Virginia would take care of me for 1 month, hoping that my mother would come back to claim me. But Wendy, she didn't come. 4 months passed, and well, what happened was very, very interesting. There was a dinner party in Wheeling, West Virginia. And by the way, by the newspaper, from the newspaper, I was called the Tally Ho Baby. So there had been several articles during this 4 week period written about me. And as I started to say, my mother didn't claim me. And so when 4 weeks were up, there was a dinner party for Judge McKee. And George Bailey and his wife Lou said, "So, Judge, whatever happened to the Tally Ho baby? Did her mother come back and claim her?" And Judge said, "No, George is very sad. She didn't come. And Monday we're transporting her to the state orphanage." And at that moment, Lou Bailey and George Bailey said, "No, you're not. We want to adopt her." So, so that Monday, instead of going to the state orphanage, Lucretia and George Bailey were adopting the Tally Ho baby, sight unseen. That's my story.
That is such an incredible story. And every time you tell it, I've heard it a couple of times, and I've read it in magazines, and I have to say, it just makes you believe in Hollywood. Because all those stories, you watch the movies and said this could never happen in real life. Yes, it
Never.
could.
It did. And you know what? My mother and father, if I had scripted that story, they would have been the ones that I would have chosen. They have been incredible parents. Daddy, whose name ironically is George Bailey, and by the way, it has been a wonderful, wonderful life. Remember George Bailey?
Yes, absolutely.
A wonderful life. Can you believe that? And it seems so surreal. And my mom is an angel too. Um, she was a philanthropist. She headed every charity in town, and she even raised 500 grand to build the Florence Crittenden home, the Elf Center downtown Chicago for children from unwed mothers. And the saga just continues. 2 years later, I had a brother who was also adopted, and 1 week in, I said to Mother and Daddy, "Couldn't we take back the boy?" I was used to being the only one. Can't we take back the boy? Of course they didn't, and I fell in love with him. And then 2.5 years later, John came along for real. So it's been a great life so far.
Just a grand, grand story and a great way to begin. I'm sure you all agree. Uh,
Yeah.
how did you, okay, so you've been adopted by this wonderful family, and from what you told me about your childhood, they were very comfortably off, so you really were like a princess found.
Well, well, I mean, we all had our chores. It was not like, it was very Norman Rockwellian. No, we weren't spoiled rotten. We were just loved rotten. You know what I mean? There's a big
Yeah,
difference
yeah.
in that.
No, I didn't, I didn't mean the princess and the pea kind of you
Oh,
put a million mattresses on your bed or anything,
no,
but
no.
obviously it was a very happy home to be raised in.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so how did you go from that to the entertainment industry?
Well, I graduated from Michigan State University and I didn't want to go back to West Virginia. I had desires, to get into a career. I love to write and read, and my degree is in journalism and writing in particular. And so, so when I came to Chicago, I was interviewing for jobs, and of course, I wasn't a teacher. And so back then, a long time ago, we won't say how far long ago, but back then, they wanted everybody to be a secretary, remember? And I mean,
All too
I could
well.
type of what?
All too well.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure yeah, we have talked about that.
Yeah.
And we weren't secretaries. We had bigger ideas. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. Nobody wanted me. And heard about I heard about the Hang Up, which is a nightclub on Rush Street that is still there today. And they were interviewing and auditioning for DJs, live DJs at the club, and I got a job. So this was like going to a party and getting paid for it. Well, here's what happened. We all knew each other at the club by our first names. And I was Barbara, and in walked Bobby. Bobby was married to Brenda, and they had an entourage, and they'd been coming in for 2 years. And one year he goes, Bailey, the way you cook, the way you handle this room, I want you to consider working for me. And I said, but Bobby, what do you do? I don't even know. You know. And he said, I'm a music producer down the street at Universal Recording Studio. And I said, I've heard everything, but that's the best one yet. You know? Yeah, right. Sure, sure you are a music producer. He said, no, I really am. I own Bobby Whiteside Music, and I'd love for you to just come and check it out. My music rep of 3 years got married, and she's now in Nashville, and I've been auditioning for 3 months. And I keep thinking about you. I keep thinking that you would love it and be a great rep. And he said, just give it a try for a week, and if you don't like it, go back to the hang up. Well, what do you think I did, Wendy? You're,
Uh-huh.
uh,
You went back to the hang up, of course.
of course. Silly girl, right? That I was. I gave my notice at the hang up. And they're still there, by the way. They're doing great. We're still very good friends. But that was the beginning of my music career in 1980, right out of college.
And
So
that's how you learned the business, right?
I did. I was a music rep.
Through
Yeah.
that. I wanted to ask you, I know you're booking people all over the country. How are you continuing to do that? Or did everything just kind of stop in March 2020? What happened when everyone said you have to stay in?
Yeah. There were no bookings. In fact, there are no booking, very little. There are few bookings now. I'm just starting to book casinos. But the rest, the nightclubs, and certainly the theaters, the theaters aren't open at all right now. And what I did and what we did was, we got creative. We used that time to go into the studio, and to perform and get the next album ready. We took that time. Some of my clients write their own songs, so they wrote songs. What else? I wrote a lot of shows for my artists, and of course they took time to learn the shows and really dial in the songs and so that when preparation met opportunity, right, they would
Right.
be ready. So we used that time to get ready. And what happened to me personally was I started to reinvent myself too. And so as you know, I have become a singer and a performer myself, which is the craziest thing because I'm always behind the scenes, directing, writing, producing, booking. And now all of a sudden, I'm finding out that I have a little career of my own. And that came out of uh, a lot of things that I think we're going to talk about a little later, right? Aren't we?
Well,
Yeah.
let's get into them. Let's get into them right now. Because you made us all curious about what's going on. So, how did that all happen?
Well, golly, 5 years ago, I got a call from a cabaret nightclub where I book a lot of my clients here in Chicago called Davenport's. And it was the beginning of November, end of October. And the owner said, so Barb, we need to know, we need promo on your December 7th show. And we don't even have a title, and it's coming up very soon. And you know what? I took a deep breath and I said, I'm getting a call. I'll have to call you right back. And I hung up. I took a deep breath and I realized I had forgotten that I had booked a show.
Oh my God.
I booked the show at Davenport's back in February. And at the time, I figured I'd do an ensemble show with some of my clients, and it's sort of like a really cool showcase. And I forgot. Now, you would think, oh, no big deal. Your clients can throw something together, right, in a month. And you know what? They all can. But most of them, had just performed their big shows where all their clients came. I mean, all their audience, their fans came. And I thought, oh, this could be trouble. What if they don't want to come back? And they'd have to do the same show, la, la, la. So I thought for a moment. I called Dakota, who we're going to talk about, who is somebody I was managing at the time, and I'm still managing. And I said, Dakota, and I told him the problem. How would you like to do a show with me in a month? And he said, why not? I love how you sing. Let's do it. And so that was the beginning of my little singing career, if you can believe. So I wrote it. Of course, I booked it. He and I did a patter back and forth. I opened with three songs, then I brought Dakota on. He stayed on the rest on stage, the rest of the show. And it was hilarious. I mean, we talked about how I first met him and ended up signing him. We talked about all of our many times on the road and all the fun things, that happened. We talked about some of the other things that happened that we wished hadn't happened. We were really, we were really very vulnerable on stage, and it was a great script, I have to say. And it was my first show script, really, for the two of us. We've since done a few more, but it went over. And so I invited all my friends because I didn't have a fan base, and of course many of his fans came. And but I book him all over the country, so I wasn't real worried. And they loved it. And I called it December Love through the eyes of a music agent. Like it?
Mm-hmm.
And the rest is history. The music agent is now performing. Crazy as it seems, but I love it. I mean, it's a reinvention. We all did it during COVID.
Well,
So,
just think of that famous saying, "The show must go on," meaning
yeah,
whatever happens in your life, you still have
yeah.
to get it together enough to interact with the
That's
audience,
right.
with other people.
And that's really right. I mean, it's very perceptive of you because that is how we all think. The show must go on no matter what. And it went on way back when at Davenport's with Dakota, and look what happened.
Well,
So,
speaking of Dakota, because I wanted to ask you, I'm sure there are people out there who would love to be discovered by you in some way. Tell about how you find talent and how you found him, because that's a wonderful story too.
and somebody called me from Vegas saying, Barb, have you ever heard of this kid? He's knocking around Vegas. He's in all the nightclubs, and he's great, and he doesn't have representation. And the first thing I said is, how old is he? Because Wendy, it's so difficult. It just layers on a lot of other issues in our business if we work with a minor. So I didn't even pay attention to the name. The first thing I said is, well, how old is he? To this producer. And he said, ready. And I said, no, I can't do it. And I'm so busy anyway. So thanks. Well, can you believe a year later, almost to the day, I got a call from another producer. This friend of mine is in LA. And he said almost the same thing. He said, Barb, there's this great kid knocking around in Vegas at the clubs, and he doesn't have any representation. And I said, this sounds vaguely familiar. How old is he? How old is he? And he said he's 21. And I said, what's his name? And he told me. And I said, well, send me a sizzle reel. So he did that. And honestly, Wendy, the first song was I've Got You Under My Skin. He had me at the end of that song, hook, line, and stinker. Hands down, I got in touch with Dakota. He was living with his family in Vegas, knocking around at the bars, making a name for himself. His father wouldn't let him talk to me at first. He was very, very protective, and I thought that was good. And finally, the father got to know who I was a little bit. And he turned the phone over to Dakota one day, and we must have talked for 4 months, Dakota and I, about music, our philosophy, and Dakota, being 21, was an old soul. He was really like, and it's because he'd been performing professionally since Mickey Rourke's in Miami when he was 5 years old. He would wear a fedora and a three-piece suit with a vest, and he would tribute Frank Sinatra so well that when Dakota was 8 years old, Dakota was in Florida and he went to a Frank Sinatra show. And Tom Dreesen, from here, was opening for Frank Sinatra. And Frank said to Tom, I understand that kid, Dakota, is in the audience tonight. Before the show, would you bring him backstage? And so, of course, Tom Dreesen walked out into the audience and said, Excuse me, are you Dakota Horvath? And he was sitting there with his father and mother. Mr. Sinatra would like to speak with you. So, so he went backstage and talked with Frank Sinatra for almost a half hour about music. And he's an old soul. I mean, at age 5, he could talk, at age 8, he could talk with Sinatra about music, right? So at the end of the conversation, right before Sinatra went on stage, Frank used to, back in those days, always wear a hanky in his vest pocket. And he had this orange silk handkerchief, and he pulled it out and he handed it to little Dakota. And he said, You've got it, kid. Carry on my
Wow,
name.
that's fantastic.
And it hit the National Enquirer the next day. So when we talked on the phone for 4 months, we talked like I was talking to a 51-year-old, not a 21-year-old, about the business,
Mm.
about music. And so, long story short, he and his family moved to Chicago in January of the next year, which was 2008. And we signed paper that week, management paper. And I opened Barb Bailey Entertainment around Dakota. So, and I'm still managing him. Of course,
That's fantastic.
to LA, so that's another story, but that's really great.
Where do you think all of this is going now that we're coming out of the pandemic, hopefully, knock wood, uh, but it's not gone yet. And I really don't see Zooming disappearing. I don't see the live Facebook Live disappearing. To me, that is going to become part of our life in some way, even when people go back into clubs and live performances.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'm going to give an example of what you just said to be true. There is a very fine, extremely well loved piano player here in Chicago that plays all the nightclubs. You know, his name I will not divulge, but we all love him. And he has said to me on many occasions, he has so many Zooms. He has a Zoom every Saturday night, ever since COVID. He's still Zooming, even though he can go out and play. He loves it because he doesn't have to get into his car and go downtown and get parking and pay for parking, usually. He doesn't have to fight crowds. He doesn't have to build an audience. He doesn't have to worry about are people going to be there? Are they coming? He makes a salary from the club and then he makes more in his tip jar. But it's always a push pull. Now he can just sit in the comfort of his home behind his piano, and he's had over 100 people at his Zooms internationally. He's built his fan base like he could have never built it before, right?
Hmm.
He's making money because in the heat of the moment, everybody is so turned on by the Zoom that they zell him like crazy, all this money. And so he misses performing live, but definitely Zoom is here to stay. I mean, everybody from, Ravinia to Dina Martin and all these people that we all know and love are Zooming. So, nothing's impossible for any of us. I think we dream the dream, and then I will tell my secret. I not only dream the dream, and you can all do the same thing because it works. Then you visualize that dream happening like it already happened. I don't care what it is. In my case, let's say it's on stage, singing before an intimate group or at a cabaret. All right. And you see that, you visualize it to the extent that it's so real that it's really already happened. And you can read books about this. It really has happened in a certain time zone. It has already, because it's transferred. We're all energy, and it's transferred from your mind into the collective consciousness, isn't it? And the collective consciousness picks it up. And as long as you don't drop the ball and you stay focused, that's why that word comes up all the time in all businesses. Stay focused because you've already done it. You know you can do it. Now you have to figure out how. You have to connect the dots. You've got a network over here, network over there, research over here, learn to sing. That would help. You know, right? Whatever it takes, whatever your dream is, see it like it's already happened. See yourself doing it, and then connect the dots. It works.
Barb, that is the perfect ending for this show.
Oh,
It is. It's because I really feel that is part of the essence of the show is encouraging people to dream and to make their dreams come true, and to take from the people that are on the show encouragement and insight and energy too to make those dreams happen.
yeah. I love your shows. I've watched many of them.
Oh, well, thank you.
Congratulations, because I think you're helping a lot of people who maybe don't have the answers. None of us have all the answers. We have to help each other. Nobody can do this alone, ever.
That's the truth. So I'm gonna have to close it up. We've gone probably over our time, but that's okay. And I want to thank all of you for coming, and of course, thank you, Barbara, because this has been just a terrific experience. Please remember that we are on 216thenet.com every Monday from noon to 12:30, and we are also on Facebook. The page you want to go to is Succeed in a Pandemic, and you'll see us on video on that page. And thank you very much for tuning in. Please come back again next week. And until we're all vaccinated and this is all behind us, please stay in a little while longer and stay well. Thank you. Bye.